everywhere I've been in the Marine Corps, every duty station I've had some kind of a little side hustle. Like everything's legal. Everything's legal.
Hello, this is Tab Bartley, and you are listening to the Oath We Took podcast, the show that tells the Marine Corps story through the Marines that served. I'm joined today by Victor de la Flor. He is the reason for this podcast. I know so many amazing Marines who hesitate to tell their stories. Their stories hold so much power and so many life lessons. Oftentimes, though, they go untold. Not every Marine story is the same. What is the same is the oath that we all took. This week, I'm honored to have Victor on the podcast to share a piece of his story. In this week's episode, we will talk about his time in the Marine Corps, how he has managed to have a side hustle while serving, and what he's doing to prepare for his exit out of the Marine Corps. You won't want to miss this conversation. Victor, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting to be here. Thank you.
It is. So I actually I thought you were a few different people because you have multiple Instagram accounts. And it was like when we had done the pre-interview, I was even more excited because I was like connecting the dots of, wait, you do this and this and this. So super excited to have you on. The first question I always have for everybody is, why did you decide to join the Marine Corps?
That's a big question, I'll tell you. At the time when I joined the Marine Corps, I was living in Orlando, Florida, right? I was about 20 years old, and I felt like I needed to get away for a little bit. It was starting to feel like a black hole. Like I need to get out of this hole because I'm never going to progress. I had multiple little jobs, nothing that really accumulated to anything. It was like working at a car wash, and then I can't be working at a pizzeria at some point, and then telemarketing, and nothing was really like working for me. I needed something different. So then I decided, actually a friend of mine showed up in his uniform. And I'm like, okay, well, that looks sharp. That looks cool. And honestly, I hope he's not listening to this. And I mean, I hope he does listen to it because it's a podcast, right? But I thought to myself, well, damn, if he can do it, then I can do it. So then I talked to a buddy of mine, and we went through the buddy program. But mainly it was just to get out of the same rut of living in Florida. I was not around the best people. It was constant arguments with my parents, as a 19, 20-year-old. And another thing, I guess I like the uniform. I wanted to have some kind of structure in my life. I wanted my parents to be proud of me and not have to argue so much with me, right? That was the main reason. And, it was great when I finished boot camp and just see the look in their eyes. And then when I did the whole TBS, and did the whole officer route, then, see the look in their eyes again. It was like, okay, I have their approval now. Everything's working out. So I just, at the base of it, I just needed a change for me.
And did you pick, did you have a choice or have like a aspiration of what MOS or job you wanted in the Marine Corps? Or were you more concerned about like just becoming a Marine?
No, at first it was just becoming a Marine. I didn't really know anything about the jobs. And then, I talked to the recruiter. I went through like the Army recruiter, Navy recruiter, and then at the end, Marine recruiter, right? I like what the Marines had to offer, and mainly the uniform, but I didn't really know too much about them. I know that they went to wars and stuff like that. And then really, I wanted to go in, once talking to the recruiter, I wanted to go in and do intel. He kind of was telling me, hey, intel does this and that. I was like, man, that sounds cool. I get to deploy, things like that. And but they didn't have an opening for that. I guess it goes by MOS or MOS school or something. So I'm like, okay, well, what else you got? He's like, well, we have the legal stuff, the legal route. And I thought to myself, well, okay, maybe in the future I can kind of transition to being an attorney or something. That sounds like something I'd want to do. So I said, hey, how soon can I go for legal? They're like, well, you have to go the admin route, and then you have to be selected out of that pool to go to legal, right? So I'm kind of taking a chance. I might be stuck in admin, or I might get a chance to go to legal. I said, hey, let's do it. Let's try it out, man. I just need to get over there, get out of this place and start something. So yeah, went legal route. Lucky enough, I got chosen to go legal. They pulled me out, went to Newport for, my MOS training. So I did have an idea of what I wanted to go in as, once they kind of cut out until I was just kind of all in on legal, because for one, I could go quickly. And for two, it had that quick route to, probably be an attorney at some point in time.
And are you happy with that decision now that you went that route?
I am, to be honest. I've done it for the last almost 20 years now. I've been in, different facets of military justice, legal assistance, trial admin. Right now I serve as a legal admin officer, and it is rewarding. Unfortunately, sometimes, you don't see the best of the Marine Corps working in there, but it is rewarding just doing the work, showing your Marines how to do the work, just seeing how these Marines blossom, how they grow. Some of them actually get out and become attorneys because they see that stuff. I have a few friends who have done that. So that is cool. So I've stuck by it because it's a small community too. So you know everybody really. So I can pick up the phone and just make a phone call and then make things happen. It's that easy. It's not a huge committee like admin or some of these other MOSs, right? Even me as the chief warrant officer, there's only about 22 of us in the entire Marine Corps. So I know every single one of them, and I can just pick up the phone and be like, hey, so-and-so, can you help me out with this? We need you to support this. Can you help out? And I mean, it's received really well. It's a small community, and I simply love that.
And I actually, that you being a warrant officer was one of the things I was going to bring up, because you're the first warrant officer on the podcast. And I think a lot of people, especially like non-military, don't understand warrant officers or the process or like any of that. And so can you tell me a little bit about, I think first and foremost, like, so you're enlisted, and at what point in your career were you like, I want to go warrant officer, and then kind of explain what like warrant officer means?
Sure. So a warrant officer is a specialist in that MOS, right? Similar to like when you're in infantry, you are called a gunner, right? You are a specialist in the MOS of arms, right? Of rifles and different types of like weaponry. For me, I've worked in most every facet of legal. So military justice, legal assistance, all different shops, right? So I've got this accumulation of knowledge. So that's something that they really look at when you actually apply for the warrant officer program. But I was a staff sergeant at the time, was stationed in Camp Lejeune. I actually, no, I'll take that back. I was the staff sergeant. I applied for the position for the warrant officer program out of Iwakuni. So then I PCS to Camp Lejeune, and that's when I found out that I got selected for it, right? So there's the whole selection process. Out of like, I think it was 18 folks in my MOS that applied for it, only 3 were selected. I was lucky enough to be one of those 3. And they look at everything same as any other board would for like staff, the gunny board or whatever it might be. They look at everything. They look at your PME. They look at your knowledge. Are you well rounded? Would you do good for the community? So they chose 3 of us. We did our thing with the TBS. Lucky enough we knew each other really well, but they don't keep you together. They separate you, right? But yeah, it was tough. TBS is not easy, especially with like an old body, right? An older body. I mean, I'm not a young, lieutenant, so I was probably in my mid 30s, early 30s when I went, right? But it's a lot of test taking. It's a lot of memorization. It's a lot of, I guess, physical too. But I mean, it's doable, and it's not as long as a regular commissioned officer TBS, schooling. It's where a regular commissioned officer lieutenant would be 6 months. The warrant officer is going for 4 months. Normally, they cut out all the pistol ranges and all the rifle ranges and all the extra stuff that we've already done in the fleet, right? So they cut all that stuff out. But I mean, it was really rewarding. We networked a lot. I still keep in contact with a lot of the folks that I went out there with. A lot of them are, majors now because they went LDO route. A lot of them are retiring. So, life changes, people retire, people want to move on. But yeah, as there was actually some sergeants in my platoon who applied and got selected as sergeants. So that seemed a little young to me, but I mean, hey, I'm not, it's not my call. But I think now they might have changed it. But there was even a master sergeant who picked up warrant officer. I guess that sounds like a pay cut to me. I don't know.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure that's
Yeah.
a pay cut. I think after
Yeah.
gunnies, a pay cut. I think some
Yeah.
gunnies may even be a pay cut.
Right.
Which I think is another like really interesting thing about it. And my MLS didn't have them when I was in. They just brought warrant officer back for public affairs, like right as I was getting out, or right before I got out. So it wasn't something that I didn't know any warrant officers. It wasn't like they were like unicorns, right? Like they weren't like, they were straight unicorns.
Right.
What were some of the challenges from going enlisted to officer, especially with being in such a career field that you said was so small? Did you have like challenges? Because like I can imagine like you having friends and peers, and now they're no longer your peers, and just kind of like how that challenge was and adjusting to that type of like leading.
Yeah, and I was working for a Chief Warrant Officer 3 at the time when I was a staff sergeant, got selected, and she brought me in after when I came back, because I did go back to Lejeune after the fact, after TBS, and she brought me in and she's like, hey, there is that line now that you can't cross, right? Now these folks who are your friends, now they're working for you, or you're the officer now and they are the enlisted now. So there's, you can't have that open fraternization, you just have to find that line. I still have one of my best friends is a master sergeant, and I mean, he just retired. Even now, the new master sergeant that took his place, one of my really good friends, we were lance corporals together, so he works right across the hall. You just have to know where to cross it, where that line is. I'm not going to go and hang out with, a sergeant or something like that on the weekend. That's not going to happen. Maybe after I retire, I have no problem with that, but as far as I'm wearing the uniform right now, active duty, that probably won't happen. But you just have to know, for me, it's that warm and fuzzy feeling. Like if I don't have that warm and fuzzy feeling, if I think that something is a little off, I'm probably not going to do that thing. Right. So she definitely had that talk with me. They even kind of beat it into your head at TBS, like, hey, you are officers now, you will, you fall under, these rules, vice these rules and stuff. And I totally get it. I totally get it. So, and I was a little older enough to know, like, okay, right from wrong. I'm not like a 20-something-year-old. I can decipher all that stuff. Yeah.
And it's funny you bring the age up, because even like boot camp saying that you went in at 20 year olds compared to 18-year-olds in boot camp is like a 10-year difference. I mean, yes. I don't think that's something civilians understand, but it really is like, it is like a 10-year difference. Like those those years, like, man, they don't equal to what they do in the civilian world by any means.
No, they don't. I mean, I still like, when I was younger, I still like to party and stuff, with friends, but I got over the dumb stuff really quick, right? Like when these folks would do something crazy, I'm like, well, maybe I'll stay away from that. You get that spidey sense, but like I turned 21 in MOS school. So, we had some good times in MOS school, but after that, it's like, you are a little bit older, a little bit wiser, you've seen things. You probably know, hey, look, you probably shouldn't drink that much because you're not going to feel well the next day, and you tell people that as you get older, with, life comes wisdom. So, but yeah, it did feel a little bit older, as some of these folks in my platoon in boot camp had like waivers at 17 and stuff. And I'm 20. I'm like, man, these guys feel like they're babies, right? So I understand what you're saying. It definitely does feel like you're a lot older when you're in boot camp and you had 20 years old.
Yeah, it's because I went in at 20 as
Yeah,
well, and it very much was like, oh well,
yeah,
there was just moments that I'd like write my recruiter and be like, you didn't tell me that they were gonna be like this. Like you told me all these other things
yeah,
were gonna happen and I'm fine. But the forewarning of how other people would react to things, and
right.
he was just like, yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah. Some of these guys, they. I mean, some folks grow up quick, some folks don't. I mean, even now, as a leader in my MOS and my job right now, I can see it from the top. Some of these folks, they're getting in trouble a lot more than some of the others. So you definitely see it. And they need to have some maturity. They still have some time to mature. So I mean, I put that on their staff and COs, and it kind of trickles downward. Like it's great enough because the optics are a real thing, and people are watching you at all times in the Marine Corps.
Do you think, having been, enlisted and kind of like walked in their shoes before as well, that
Mhm.
that helps when it comes to like you leading and you like talking to them about that type of stuff?
So
Do you feel like there's just like
yeah,
a more of a same lingo thing, maybe not like a divide?
yeah, 100%. I feel like that. So you can notice it with like these Mustangs, right? Like prior enlisted officers, the way they talk, the way they communicate with the young Marines. At least I do, right? So normally, like when I walk into a room, Marines get quiet, like they're like, oh, the sir is here, right? Whatever. And I'm, I like to be sarcastic and I like to pick on folks, just friendly, like, hey, what are you doing? Double duck, whatever, and just call them these silly little names. And they respond and they're like, oh, okay, sir is just messing around or whatever. So I kind of build that rapport with them, uh, but not enough to where it's crossing the line, right? I mean, I always have that open door policy. I can joke around when I need to, when I can, but when it comes down to business, I know how to conduct that as well. But I do feel like there's not such a big communication barrier. Like I know I've been a Lance Corporal, but no, excuse me, I've been a Lance Corporal before, a sergeant before, staff and CO before. I know the lingo exactly like you mentioned. I know how to communicate in that way. And I know the stressors of being a staff NCO, and when you're being called upon by the company or the battalion or the squadron, whoever, hey, we need folks to fill these billets ASAP. I know the stressors of that. I'm like, all right, good to go for a sergeant, or sergeant major, whatever it is. I don't have to deal with that now, but I am empathetic to what they're going through sometimes.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it is so important. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's important to have warrant officers, but I think that like that's a huge one too, where, and yeah, I mean, I've had officers on the podcast too, and it's not like there's this, like, I may make it seem like more dramatic than it is. It's not like there's this massive, massive divide, right? It's not like enlisted can't talk to officers or anything like
No,
that. It's just more when
no.
we're looking at the like super like deep level, and we're talking like really
Mhm.
like intricately in it. What are some of the other challenges that you have had in the Marine Corps, whether it's like personal, professional, just like things that like you've had to figure out how to get through?
Hmm. Um, I can't really point something out like specifically. Wow. I mean, I can't think of anything. I mean, it's I I'll tell you why. I'm a figure outer, if that's even a word, right?
It
So
is now.
it is now, right? So if I cannot accomplish something, I'm going to figure out a way how to, right? I guess the biggest thing would be so in my MOS, I was a legal admin officer for many years, and or I'm sorry, an admin law officer, administrative law officer, which means I run an administrative law shop. That entails me going into the courtroom, advocating for the government against the defense counsel. And I've done that probably over 300 times, in front of a panel of 3 members, which are equivalent to, I guess, the jury, right? Uh, so now I'm not an attorney, but these are just administrative processes. They don't lead to like a bad conduct discharge or any jail time or anything. They're just administrative in nature, which means like, okay, well, basically like an employer saying, hey, you're not fit to be an employee at this company anymore. Exactly like that. A little bit higher than an NJP, but it's administrative. So I guess what I had to overcome was, uh, I guess the fear of going up there in front of folks and just like, okay, all eyes are on me. I gotta know these rules by like the back of my hands. You know, this Marine Corps separations manual. I gotta spit this information out. I gotta be quick on my feet because a lot of these attorneys are very smart, and they're quick on their feet and they think fast. And I'm like, dude, I got like a lot of stuff in my mind, and like, you know, my kid's blowing up my phone. My wife is asking me this. I'm writing down like my argument here. You know, it's just I got to be in the zone, and that was a big step for me. I had to overcome. Like, I gotta learn how to keep this all together. I have to learn how to intelligently speak in front of folks, you know, because a lot of times, even growing up, I was just not back in the block, but it was like, you know, just with my buddies and stuff like that. I never had to actually go through and start doing that. So I took it upon myself to go to these sessions, like these clubs called Toastmasters. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. So I
I
did that
have.
a lot. Yeah, I've done that a lot, just so I can feel like I'm looking at folks in the eye and talking to them intelligently, and know how to work a room. So I didn't ask for the Marine Corps to pay for any of that stuff. I was just kind of like, I did it on my own time after work. So I guess that was the biggest thing to overcome, was how to work a room, how to, you know, have these rules and regulations and just kind of spit them out. And then once a defense attorney comes out with something, I'm back at it with something else. You know, it was never easy for me because I guess I don't hold a short-term memory as well. I don't know, but I always have to write something down, you know, so it's not as easy for me.
I'm the same with writing
Yeah.
stuff down. And I think
Yeah.
it's cool that you mentioned that you just like figure stuff out. Cause one of the
Yeah.
things that, like, again, I mentioned it in the beginning, like I follow like what is it, 3 different Instagram accounts for you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
literally didn't put the pieces together until we talked, that it was like, wait, that's you too. And
That is,
so
yeah.
you on top of being a Marine, on top of being a dad, on top of being a husband, you
Mhm.
also have like taken initiatives and done some really cool things in regards to like art. And then you've even like is created the right thing, patent, I don't know proper
Yeah.
terminology,
And created, invented.
created,
Yeah.
invented, I like
Yeah.
invented, we'll go with invented, um and then run a business and do all this stuff. So can you talk a little bit about how you kind of started doing other things besides just the
Yeah.
Marine Corps while you were in the Marine Corps?
Absolutely. So I'll start off with this. Ever since I was a kid, I've always had a desire to be like, I've had an entrepreneurial spirit, right? I wanted to create things. I wanted to do things. I wanted to sell things, this and that, right? So everywhere I've been in the Marine Corps, every duty station I've had some kind of a little side hustle, right? Everything's legal. Everything's legal. No, I'm kidding. So like in Iwakuni, I created a business where I was doing heat pressing for jerseys, like youth sports. You put the name on the back, you know, like the vinyl names. I was a coach at that time, coaching my daughter's soccer team, and they gave me all the jerseys. And I guess the youth sports coordinator mentioned, hey, look, there's a guy out in town that can do all the jerseys for you. He charges 1,000 yen, which is equivalent to about $13 then, right, per jersey. So I collected everybody's money because, of course, everybody wanted the name on the jersey, and I took it out to this guy off base, a Japanese guy. Right? And then I dropped it off with him. He's like, hey, can you pick it up in 2 weeks? I said, yes, I can. I looked in the back of his workshop. He had like 50, 60 bags full of like different teams, different jerseys. And me just doing the math in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, that's how much this guy's making a killing here, you know, just okay. So then I went out, I went back home. I got online and I looked at P presses and I looked at vinyl. And then I just ordered one. It was like dropped like $500 on it. The shipping was incredible. It was like $300, to Japan, right? So I did that, and then I just kind of watched videos on how to do it and all that, taught myself how to do it. And before you know it, I was just heat pressing. It was like I was charging $10 a jersey, just doing it. And sadly enough, I don't know if I put the guy out of business or what, because I took like everybody's jersey and I give him an incentive. I was like, hey, look, you go with me over the guy off base and I'll do the coach's jersey for free. So they did that. And I had a 2-day turnaround. So it was just a lot more efficient to go with me. So that was Iwakuni. And then I actually made a video on that and then did a little podcast on that one myself too. Because it made like 20 grand while I was out there, and as a staff sergeant, really as a sergeant turned staff sergeant while I was out there, that was big money to leave there just with 20 grand off of a side hustle. So then, but that's always been my thing. I've always wanted to do things on the side. Now with this thing, Undercover Clip, that I made, that one was out of like a necessity. So I had my sunglasses. This was in Hawaii. I had my sunglasses on, brand new pair of Maui Jims, and I put them in my cargo pocket because I was late for a formation. I was kind of like hustling up there, threw them in my cargo pocket. I had like a screw in there from when I was fixing a cabinet or something. It was terrible, and I completely forgot I had my sunglasses in my pocket after the fact. You go to congratulate people after you see people at the formation. I'm just walking around, this thing's sloshing in my pocket. I take it out and I'm like, oh man, the lenses are all scratched up. I was like, shoot, I just got these this past weekend. So I'm like, look, I went home. I'm like, there's got to be a better way to carry this thing, and I'm looking all over my uniform. I'm like, where? And then, I took off my cover and I'm like, I got this old credit card in my cover, that little pocket in the front. And I'm like, you know what? That looks like a good spot. It's not, I looked at the regs. I'm like, it's not against the regs. It's hidden. Nobody sees it. It's under your cover. Right. So then I called it Undercover Clip. Right. And it took me like 8 iterations to make it. I taught myself how to 3D print, 3D design. I taught myself the patent process. And really, I didn't want to pay somebody else to do it. Right. So I figured out how to do it myself. So I taught myself how to do everything from the beginning to end. And, and it turned into something else. Now, I sell the Undercover Clip to carry that, some MCXs at the Marine shop in Quantico, a couple of tactical shops around San Diego and Hawaii. So, every so often I'll get another order from them, another wholesale order. And then I get a couple of orders from like different folks around the country, right? Other Marines, sailors, things like that. And really, I came out with the first iteration. It was called the Tactical, right? It was just to hold your sunglasses and keep your cover looking straight. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? Let me advance on this thing a little bit. So I made one called a Motivator, which you could put, ranks in there. So an extra set of ranks. So it's got little holes in there for extra set of ranks. So, it's the same when I have my cover. I had it for like a year in my same cover. Still working like the first day I ever had it. And it's a pretty good little invention. If anybody wants to check it out, Undercover Clip.
When I saw it, I was just like, I wish this was here while I was in the Marine Corps. Because the trick of like the credit card in your cover. Mm-hmm. Oh goodness. Yeah. I don't even know. I remember the most random things being in my cover. Just like, oh, this is a nice piece of cardboard. Let me use this for a few until I sweat in it and it melts.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's what happened to mine, because I did have a cardboard piece in there before. And then when I started thinking about it, I went to this place called Hardware Hawaii, which is like an Ace Hardware or like a small Home Depot. And I started, I was picking up like little pieces of wood, like shims and like, little clips. I'm like, just playing around in different prototypes. And then, I like to draw and stuff. So I'm over here designing stuff and, drawing things out, taking dimensions, and like, I got it to the specific dimension. It took me like 8 tries, but I got it to the specific dimensions where it will fit an extra small cover up to an extra large cover. That one clip.
I was actually going to ask that, because I was that awkward person with an extra small cover. Like I was that person. Solutions didn't work a lot of times for like, I always had to wear a massive sock bun if we were going into the field to make sure my Kevlar actually stayed on, because there was no hope for me. But
Oh,
you bring up drawing, which is actually, that was the first
yeah.
social media account of yours that I had followed.
Mhm.
And so on top of like inventing and doing all of these things, you also are
Yeah.
super artistic, and you
Yeah. I appreciate
are
it.
amazing at drawing, like
Thank you.
utterly amazing. What
Thank you.
got you into that? Is that something you've always done?
Yeah. That is something I've always done, and I only came out with it publicly last year. Um, I've never. It was always my little de-stressor. I come home and I've got sketchbooks upon sketchbooks at home. Um, it was just you just need to come home and do something. Some folks, go out and cut wood or do woodworking. Some folks like to do whatever else. That was my de-stressor, is going home and I'm like, all right, I'm doodling this stuff. And you would never find me anywhere without my little green logbook and my sketchbook. So yeah, I mean, I've got newspaper clippings from when I was 5 years old. Just my parents would submit these things to the newspaper for some reason. And and I got them there. I'm like, okay, these are terrible. I mean, but they're 5-year-old drawings, right? But it was last year when was it? I drew something for a friend and I put it up on Facebook, and folks just started reaching out to me. They're like, hey, can you do one for me? Can you do one? I'm like, sure, yeah, whatever. And I was just doing them just because I wanted to. And I'm like, you know what? These things are taking a lot of time, and I probably should start charging for some of these, right? Because they are taking a lot of time. And like the intricate ones, like with the Sumi ink, the calligraphy brush, those take like, up to a week almost, because I'm just going slow at my own pace. I throw on some music. I got my jams going. I'm doing my thing. I'm in that zone. And yeah, then I started doing commissions. And then from there, they had an opening at the Fleet Week San Diego to do an art show over there. I got chosen for that. Cool. And then that kind of started this thing. And then I met somebody from the Oceanside Museum of Art there over in Oceanside, California. And then they're like, hey, we'd love to have you come on and show your stuff at this exhibit. So then I did that. And then, it just started blowing up from there. And I got a Veterans Art Scholarship to go to Chicago a few months ago in May, and went and did an exhibition out there. It was pretty cool.
That's
Never been to
so
Chicago.
cool.
Yeah, super awesome. Um, and then from there, my old EWS instructor at this major, she is a liaison for the Marine Corps diversity division.
Mm-hmm.
And so she reached out to me and she's like, hey, can you design the Sea Service Women's Leadership Award? And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do that. So I connected her with a sculptor I knew. And so I designed this year's Sea Service Leadership Award. So I don't know. I still haven't seen it yet. So I'm like,
I haven't either. Now I really
yeah,
want to see it because it
yeah,
just ended last week, right? Yeah, last
yeah.
week.
So I'm
Last
like,
week was it.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I need to see this thing. I haven't even seen the finished product yet. So, but I mean, I got an LOA for that, so I know they chose that one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, so that was pretty cool. And then actually, what happened? Actually, it was last week. Was it last week? I connected with a gentleman who is an author and a publisher. So I'm going to be doing the cover art for their books. It's like a series of different veterans books. And then today, funny enough, today I just got an email from the MCRD Museum, Marine Corps Museum. The one of the board members, this retired colonel, he reached out to me and he's like, hey, like I like your art. I want to see if you would donate one for the fundraising gala in September. And he's like, and I'd like you to join me as my guest. I'm like, oh hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So things are happening, and I'm pretty happy about it. I didn't expect it to be like this, but it's definitely something I'm looking forward to expanding on.
And I look at it as somebody who, like, I was always behind the camera when I was in, and don't have a ton of stuff from the Marine Corps, right? And
Mhm.
to have a Marine to do this art and these depictions, and it just means so much more, at least to me in my mind, than just like some random person. There's just so much more to it. There's so much intricacy. There's so much like they understand the uniform. They understand like the moments that there's
Right.
I don't know. I just, at least me, I'm the belief that like art like has a piece of whoever makes it in it too. So it's just something
Absolutely,
really
yeah.
cool to be like, you're investing in this memory, but then it's also like there's so much more to it, right? There's a connection to a Marine drew this for you. A Marine made this
Yeah.
for you as well. And just how powerful that can be for people, especially again, later on, maybe they don't have much memorabilia from their time in the Marine Corps or moments or things. And here's a way that they can turn a moment or turn a thing into something that can be specific for them.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting to hear. And the other thing we talked about, and this kind of leads to my next question. So where are you like in the Marine Corps? Are you preparing to get out of the Marine Corps? How
Yeah, I
much
am.
time longer do you have in the Marine Corps?
So I actually, my retirement ceremony is next month. So I'll be hitting, I don't actually hit 20 years until November, but I have enough terminal leave saved up. And they also give you 20 days of PTAD when you go to retire, right? So it's usually used for like house hunting or something like that, but I'm staying here in Southern California. So, I mean, we don't really need I don't need that, but I'm taking it anyway. It's free, free
Yeah,
days.
you earned it.
So it's 105 days off, but yeah, I mean, it's a long process. I don't know if I mentioned to you, I started a YouTube channel called the Green Logbook, and I started it back in November when I hit my 19-year mark, and it's just I I drop videos like twice, three times a week, maybe, on things I'm going through with the whole retirement process, right? Like my appointments with the DAV, or things I learned at TRS, or financial decisions I'm making, this and that, getting out of debt, this and that. So it just documents my entire last year, and I plan on keeping it going after the retirement, right? But it it's gotten some good feedback. I got a lot of folks that are, watching the thing, and I think I just hit 200 subscribers on there. So, it's growing little by little, right? But I'm not doing it as a way to, gain subscribers or anything like that, or get rich or anything. If anybody can go on that channel and just find something that would help them out a little bit, because that's something that I was looking for when I first started like doing research on the retirement process. Like you'd have to go seek things out, and you get little pieces here and there. You got to piece together yourself, right? I mean, TRS classes give you only so much. It's a lot to take in like 3 or 4 days. But I'm like, man, I wish that there was a channel, like a YouTube channel of somebody just going through that so I can see what the hell they're doing. And there wasn't one that I could find. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make it so people can see what the heck I'm going through. And it's been well received. Um, I got what was it? I think as of this morning, at 201 subscribers. You got the random folks that give you some weird comments and stuff. I just gotta,
Always.
yeah, shoot them away. But I think I had one that said, "Hey, look, the Marine Corps, getting out of the Marine Corps is a lot harder than getting in." And he commented like, "Why are you telling people to get out of the Marine Corps?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not. I'm actually trying to help these folks, make an easier transition out of the Marine Corps, should that be their decision."
Well, nobody
But
can stay in forever either.
no,
So
you can't. You can't. I've got friends who have been in for 30 years, and normally 30 years is like the mark, right? Unless you're like a general somewhere up there. But no, I think I'm definitely going to keep going with this green logbook thing. Um, I'm going to make the website. I already started trademarking the name, so it's fun. Honestly, it's fun. I'm gonna probably I signed up for a car show, so I'm going to be around a bunch of young Marines out there. It's on base, so I'm going to go and talk to them a little bit, like, hey, what's the hardest thing about the Marine Corps for you? What makes you not want to stay in? Things like that. Because really, I want to know too, right? I mean, I decided to stay in because I had good leadership. Some of these folks don't want to stay in because their leadership may not be as good. I don't know, but yeah, it is fun. being on. I do have a little bit of an issue putting my face out there, with everything on YouTube, like, but I just really want to get the information out, you know.
And I think that's super important. And now that you brought that up, yeah, that's another one that I follow that I think was the
Yeah.
first one that I saw your face. And that's when I put like two
Thank
and two. When I heard your
Yeah.
voice, I was like, wait, okay. So I will be sure in the podcast to link everything so that
Awesome,
people can find it and label it as what it is. And as we start to wrap up, I want to ask if there's anything we didn't talk about that you would like to talk about, or any subject that I have missed.
Let me see. Well, I'll tell you, as I start to transition out of the Marine Corps, I've noticed that I'm sitting down a lot with the younger folks and just kind of sharing my story with them, right? And that's something that's dear to me. It's like I personally I like to sit down with the older folks, like the older veterans, and just hear their stories. And in talking with that author that I mentioned about the book covers, that is the premise of the types of books that he's making, is taking these veteran stories and compiling them into into books. Because a lot of times, even these old folks, those stories are going to be lost, right? So if I can give a message to anybody, it's like, hey, look, take advantage of these older folks, the ones who are either retiring, getting out, or old veterans from like the old wars, and listen to them, hear what they have to say. Because a lot of times, especially nowadays, people are so self-absorbed, sticking themselves in social media. They don't give the time of day to other folks to actually sit down with them and have a one-to-one conversation, that kneecap to kneecap, right? And those things are going to be lost. So I make it a point to, my door is extra open these days, right? Anybody who really wants to come in, I'm like, I'll give them the time of day. Hey, let's talk. You want to? I run an eBay shop. I had a sergeant who asked me the other day, "Hey, sir, can you tell me about this eBay stuff?" Hey, sit down, dog. Let's talk. You want to do it like this? You want to headline like this? Keywords like this? However, I can help. Because an eBay shop. I run an eBay shop, and I'm a top seller on there. So it's just a little side thing that I do. And he wants to do the same thing. So I'm like, hey, let me help you out. And that's with anything. I'm completely open to all that stuff.
So, well, I have the last question, which is, if you had to take the oath again, would you?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. This the Marine Corps has given me more than I could ever imagine. Has given me a chance to meet folks that I never thought I would meet, go places I never thought I'd go, see things I never thought I'd see. And really, I know that my parents did not come to this country, so I can just slack off, right? So I feel like I did them proud. I feel like I gave my part to my country. I was born and raised here, but I feel like I've given a part of me to my country. I'm proud of that, and I would do it again if I could. The whole retirement, I guess I could continue and rescind my retirement stuff, but I won't, because I'm too excited about the next chapter of my life. So, but if I had to start again from the beginning, this is the same choice I would probably make.
This is the Oath We Took podcast, and you just heard a piece of Victor's story. You now know one more Marine and one more piece of Marine Corps history. His sacrifices matter. His stories matter. Not every Marine story is the same. We didn't all join the military for the same reason. What is the same is the oath that we all took. An oath that easily could have ended in death, and for some, it did. So listeners, instead of asking you to thank a Marine for their service, I'm going to challenge you to continue to listen to their stories instead.